Boys and girls, weather report for March 7th, 2022. 25,993 days old today.
Well, congratulations for another day.
7 more days, and it'll be the big old 26,000.
We'll have to come up with a appropriate divisible by 10 with no remainder party.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's going to be on, when the hell is that? I don't know when that is. Oh, for Monday. It's on a Monday, next Monday. 7 days. Shit. Oh, that's right. Weeks work that way. Hey,
Jefferson joined us just before we went into the intro. So how are you doing, Jefferson? What did you accomplish this weekend in the world of discussion and dialogue?
I spent way too much time talking about J-Robin with people, so
yeah.
that probably got a little annoying. But other than that, Saturday had a 2-hour video with Michael, the Canadian atheist, and then I did a couple videos before that. Yesterday I didn't get anything done, so didn't do a damn thing. Well, I did jump into the Discord thing that J.L. Warren and Randolph Richardson and Jack Burton and all those guys are doing, kind of like convince atheists that there's a god or goddess, I think. Tom Jump is there.
Oh, T Jump was there?
Yeah, it's usually it's set up to the politics server, and they've been doing that about 11 a.m. Yeah, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So usually I can make it for a couple of hours at the beginning. So I think that was my third time in there.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he does it. I've been watching it. He does it every other week, right?
Yeah. Yep. Twice a month, I think, is sort of there. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. The Discord part kind of puts me off. So. Yeah,
I'm not a fan of Discord, and I think it's kind of a weird, because it's almost like a radio call-in show. And so it's like us as a panel, and then somebody comes in and asks us, try to present like what if their argument for God. And some of the calls can get a little. I mean, one guy literally came in. I don't know how long he had his hand up waiting to come in. I wanted to know. He's like, I don't have to convince you anything.
Yeah,
like,
I know.
You're right.
And
as soon as he left, that was my question. I was like, can anybody find out how long that guy had his hand up? Because for somebody who doesn't have to convince us of anything, he waited a really long time to let us know that. Yeah.
Oh, what the fuck? I'm actually part of a Bible study that's kind of meant to convince atheists with a bunch of atheists, and so far it hasn't been going very well as far as convincing us.
Well, the couple of times I attended, it was more like just a regular Christian Bible study.
No, that's the other Bible study. That's the Bible study for atheists. With the fuck, we can't think of the name. Anyway, with Luke Bauer and a bunch of others. That's a different one. The one I'm talking about is a different one with Rebecca. So, but
gotcha.
So far, I've been watching videos with Christians, and it really has been putting me off Christianity more so than an my anti-theism position has increased exponentially.
Who have you been watching?
Watching videos. What do you mean by that? Like watching videos in your Christian thing?
Yeah, we watch a little 20-minute video and then we discuss it, or 30-minute video, something like that. And I don't know who it is, but the guy just really irritates me, and so some of the things they say just irritate me. So I've been getting increasingly irritated with Christianity.
Well, you're talking about the guy who narrates the video.
Yeah. He pretty much.
Wonder who that is.
He's one of those, my life was sucked, and then I found Jesus, and oh no, Jesus Christ.
Are you going to say who it is, or would you rather not say?
I don't know who he is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Some off pastor or something that does videos to convince people, preachy things. But
Look
I
here,
guess we're going to eliminate the videos now because due to popular demand. So
We got to say hi to Wooly.
I will.
Yeah.
Gazi.
Yep.
But I was just saying that you were missed.
How are you?
This is proof.
No, Midnight, you can't
Been
get a
working
link
a lot,
until your stream is almost over, like you did to me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Payback's a bitch.
Oh, what's going on there? Is this a little drama going on?
Oh no, he had a stream the other day and he didn't send me a link, and I was bitching about it.
Okay. All right.
Yep. But he did eventually send me one, so I gotta.
You know, me and my brother, we're gossips. We're gossip mongers. That's what Jill always says. So yeah.
Well, what you want to really home in on is this ongoing battle I'm having with Germania, because that's really eating up. I mean, he is just a horrible, horrible person, YouTuber, and me and him are really at odds.
I can't wait until YouTube yeets his channel. I gotta say. Just kidding, everyone.
Yeah. Anyway,
I really don't understand what the word yeet means in a lot of contexts, but it almost sounds like the word Smurf in the Smurf universe.
getting smurfed. Is getting smurfed a sexual thing?
It's also making breakfast. That's just how broad that word is.
Oh my God.
I'll smurf you up some pancakes.
Yeah, you keep talking nasty like that. Ben, guys, don't forget Midnight pulled a Jeff. Did Midnight fall asleep and take his shirt off?
He fell asleep.
Yeah.
He disappeared. Left us
So when Jefferson, when you fall asleep and take your shirt off, is it like a sleep-induced change of clothes, like you're sleepwalking, but instead of walking, you're just getting naked?
I'm sure in my sleep, I probably am under the impression I'm a lot sexier, so I just start disrobing.
Yeah.
I concur.
When I'm dreaming, women want me.
And when I wake up, I'm like, oh, that's a terrible look. Ooh, that's bad. Oh.
Well, Midnight was sleeping. We managed to show I've got this OBS video cam, right? So we showed the most incredible furry porn. Oh my God, it was horrible. Apparently he hasn't discovered it yet.
Yeah, I don't think you went back and watched it. So yeah.
No, you didn't go back and see it. Yeah.
You really should get rid of that video, Midnight, because
we had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
When the cat's away. That's why this cat stays on top of his streams. I remember that time I didn't, and Leo and Danny got into some. What the fuck were they talking about? Something about screwing in a fucking hammock or something. I can't remember, but it was bad. It was. Yeah. I don't know what the hell it was. Something to do with a hammock? I'm not sure. Anyway, okay, so Maddox said something on his latest video that I'm absolutely thrilled with.
Yes, you have to play this.
I'm just thrilled with it.
I'm itching to hear it.
Yep. It's the great truce, we call it.
Well, I said something until I played the clip of Speed of Sound saying we're all getting dumber and dumber till we all lose our minds. And that stirred a hornet's nest. And then I just got flooded with, all the Speed of Sound fans on my channel. And I probably tossed 15 or 20 of them from my channel because they're swarming. I just don't tolerate it. I don't have the energy.
I have to. Okay, so even though I get tremendous, as everybody knows, I get tremendous amounts of humor from putting brain in the gang. I have to give Mike a caveat, and I'm being marginally. I'm not going to crowdfund I did to help that homeless lady. Beef and the vitriol and all the drama that's happened between me and him and all the insults and stuff. He very generously helped help that out. So I have to. There is underneath the crust. There is. It's like, you know what? I think putting brain actually. Speed of sound is he's the Grinch. He's going to be the Grinch at some point, and right now he's a Grinch. But hopefully at some point the little girl will sing, or will look at him after he's stolen all the presents, and his heart will begin to beat again.
I love that.
Well,
anyway, that made my day. So we have a truce, so we got to kind of be nice to John for a month.
And you do have to give LPP or John credit. He took responsibility and initiative, and he helped a homeless woman with medical issues, and that's to be applauded. I think that's an example for everybody to follow. Do what you can to help the people in your community in an environment where there's very little energy expended in the government to help those who are in crisis.
So, we did not see this little short. Oh, yeah, we did. Yes, I did see it. I'm sorry. The Peter clip on John Maddox, we played that on Midnight's channel the other day. Yeah, that was pretty cool. I can't play that for a month because John said that the truce is going to last for 1 month. He's going to. And he did try not to call me pudding brain. You know, he changed it to speed. You notice that? He's trying really hard.
Yep.
So
I can tell that hurt a little. It hurt him a little to have to change it to speed.
Yeah. Did you notice when Cell was he said I played the clip by speed of sound. He had a hell of a time saying it without it just putting daggers in his heart, right?
Yeah. And I'd like to point out that you have to have a truce with them, but that doesn't mean the rest of us do. So,
right. Well, I'm not going to call him Little Pee-Pee for a long time, for a month.
Okay.
So,
But
every time I say Little Pee-Pee, I'm going to change it to John Maddox, and if I don't, you guys have to help me to correct that. Okay.
Okay.
So,
all right.
help me. Yeah. I'm trying to be this guy. The nicer, the kinder, softer speed of sound. You see, my thumbnail.
You stole all the presents.
Yep. But anyway, so this thing was on code DNA, and is DNA a code or is it a can of Coke? Whatever.
Yep.
This whole stream, and I thought maybe we could talk about that a little bit. I don't know if you guys want.
I love the video that the little short video that he put out about that when he was in his house, right?
Which one was that?
He was sitting in his house and talking about the code. John Maddox.
Oh, was that the one that I got the thumbnail from? This thing?
Yeah, that one there. Yeah,
that thing right there.
Yeah.
Oh, he's in his car.
He's sitting in his traveling house. Yeah. No, that's his house.
His house. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, I see. You guys are not gonna come with me on this truce, are you?
I told you. You have to. We don't.
That's fair. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Oh, let's see. What is he?
Although he had to get a new house because he crashed his other house into a ditch.
It fell into
fell into a hole.
God opened the earth up and tried to eat him.
Swallowed him right up. Yep.
Swallowed him up. Yeah. He says something in last night's video that he says he's kind of agnostic about young earth creationism. He's sort of
he's full of shit though. He's in it for all its might. I mean, come on. He just does not, he knows he does not want to argue that. You know, because he'll sound like an absolute idiot more so than he already does. So he stays clear of that. He just does not discuss that at all.
Yeah, you argue that and you lose
Yeah, yeah.
automatically.
So
But-
that's the only, I'm telling you, that's the only reason why he does that.
So anyway, he went after this guy, Cunt Hovind, or he calls him Beansley or something, or Beamsley.
Yeah, I think that's the guy's name. Yeah.
Yeah, he's.
Or- yeah, that's-
I think I've got. Yeah, here's his video on. He did a video on John Maddox, and he talks about DNA being a code, and he made a lot of sense, but he made a lot of errors too. So John was picking on him about that.
Yeah.
The
Look who's here. Minnie's here. Minnie Cameron's here.
Hey, Manny, you here?
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah, it's always good to see Manny come in. He's a very positive and he always sounds happy to me, but
Yep.
that may not always be true.
he does.
Yeah.
And he lives in a desert.
Yeah.
Lives in a desert. So the thing about DNA being a code, it's how do I start explaining this? I guess probably draw a picture. I don't know. Could I draw a picture? Maybe that'll work. Oh, I don't know. Maybe that'll work. Maybe that won't work. Well, we could listen to a few things first, and then we'll get into it if I want to. So, but there are some things to clear up. Like apparently, some people, like they said in this video, that some atheists, evil atheists, think that when the mRNA is translated into a protein, that it actually eats the mRNA. I don't know if it. Do you know anybody that believes that, or do you guys believe that?
No.
It uses it as a template, and it reads it, and it creates the protein. Basically, the ribosome does. But anyway, check this out.
And I know this is difficult for Evo atheists to grasp, but I want you to think very, very hard, and just remember that being arbitrary means it's not deterministic. Okay, it's a very fundamental concept. Okay, let's continue.
Okay. That's a good place to start. It is deterministic. It's arbitrary and it is deterministic, depending on what level you want to talk about it. So John is wrong. I'm sorry. He's just flat out fucking wrong about that. Why is it deterministic? Okay. Let me see if I can figure out what I'm doing here.
Hey, quick point of clarification. He was saying Evo or evil atheist.
He says he calls us evil atheists.
Okay.
Yeah, Evo. Yeah.
Yeah, he claims to have invented that term, right? Yeah. So anyway, we got this strand of mRNA, right? So we got mRNA, and that gets created in the nucleus and shipped outside of the nucleus. And on this strand, there are these codons that come in triplets. Okay. They're lined up right next to each other, but I'm going to leave a little space so you can see the triplets. Okay. And those are the codes, basically, that decide which amino acid is going to be added to the protein. Okay. And this huge machine kind of like attaches to this thing, basically, to this RNA. And this machine moves along the RNA one step at a time, 3 codons at a time. So it's got this interesting little hinge latch movement where it'll read 3, and I shouldn't have drawn that right there, but I should have drawn it a little somewhere else. But fuck it. Let's see. I should have drawn it right here. Okay, so we've got a tRNA right here with 3 codons. Okay, that are the opposite codons from basically what it's reading. And then this tRNA, is basically wound into this huge complex called the ribosome. And it consists of about, I think 4 or 5 RNAs, and it's got a whole bunch of proteins, so there's just tons of proteins, and it's considered a very complex machine, basically, and it grasps onto that, and it goes ahead and it reads this thing. Hang on. that way, and it goes along, right? Okay. What it does is for each of these codons, it grabs a tRNA, and the tRNA looks like this. So that's one tRNA basically. And there's I think there are about 40 tRNAs. There are one or two of these little guys for every amino acid. Okay. And on the bottom here, let's see, you can't see that shit. Let me get rid of my name. Brand. Yeah, get rid of that. Okay. So on the bottom here, down here, you can see the anticodon loop. Those are the three special nucleotides, which RNA is made of, that basically pair up to those three nucleotides on the RNA in a G to C, T to A fashion, right? They're opposites. So it's an anticodon loop, and it reads the codon. And each of these tRNAs is different. So you have about 40 of these tRNAs that are floating around in your cell. And this is just RNA. This is not a protein. And these things are created from a little strand of DNA that's inside the nucleus, and it gets exported out of the nucleus. So questions? Does that make sense? Is that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So we got this process, but so we got these tRNAs that are out here, and each one of them gets charged with a particular amino acid. And that amino acid matches this codon down here on the bottom, right? So every different type of a tRNA gets its own amino acid, and then it goes down and it hooks up to these three codons down here, and it gets recognized. Okay. So there is something. So these are separate genes. Each of the tRNAs, and there's about 40 of them. There's a whole bunch of separate genes down here for the ribosome. That creates the ribosome. And there's some interesting things about that structure, but it has about 80 proteins in it and half a dozen RNAs. And it's interesting because you can pull one of those proteins out or one of the RNAs out, and it still works. So it's a real fluid, interesting structure, and they're finding a lot of redundancy in it. But anyway, so these tRNAs have to be charged basically with the right amino acid, and this is what creates the code. The first thing that creates the code is this codon, at the bottom. These three things. I got a better picture up here. This is a tRNA, and these three things are the anticodon, and those are what is going to latch onto that codon right here. And this one is going to create a serine, or it's going to look for a serine, but this is a particular kind of tRNA. Okay, and there are two proteins that are called amino acyl tRNA synthetases, which what is going on? Okay.
So it's amino ethyl.
No,
what?
amino acyl.
Oh, acyl.
Yeah, ACYL.
Okay.
tRNA synthetase.
tRNA synthetase.
Yep, but never say that again. Just say AA capital RS.
AA capital RS. Okay.
I think it's AA capital R and then it has something like that. So they're AARSs, right? And there are, as it turns out, there are about 50 of these things. Let me see, how many do I have? Not 50, 37 of them. Okay. And I read.
Hey, have you noticed we have a critique of your teaching here, of your teaching method?
Oh my God.
People
Yeah.
come up with some great stuff in chat. How about the next
I know.
one? Amino assholes.
Amino assholes, yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
I like that.
So we'll call them amino assholes from now on.
There you go.
Anyway, there are Jefferson, are you falling asleep?
No, I fell asleep, but I'm awake again.
Oh, okay.
Do you have your shirt on?
I
Nope.
just woke you up.
No, I don't even have my pants on anymore. I'm just strutting around.
So the thing that makes it a code, and the reason that it's deterministic, is that there are all of these proteins here, and there are 37 of them, and these are the amino acids that load up the right amino acid onto that tRNA, right? And these things determine what the code is. And each one of these is a separate gene, which is also encoded in the genome and gets read by mRNA. And so basically these things create themselves, which is the old chicken and the egg circular loop thing, right? Well, they ask, how the hell do they do that? Because these are proteins that have to be created in order to load up that RNA.
Mad Ducks must have a ton of those amino acids in them, because is that why he's such a prick? Yeah.
Yep.
That's probably why he's such a prick.
Yep. So this is a tab separated value file that I loaded into Python, basically from the database, which tells you where they are and tells you, where they are. And I think it tells you, 16, which chromosome. That's in chromosome 16. The top one, and chromosome 6, so they're all over the place. So the fact that those are in every single genome in almost every living thing we have in the same way means that we have exactly the same code translation. Okay. So this very complicated thing ends up being what defines the code. And when they say it's arbitrary, what they mean is these could have loaded an entirely different amino acid onto that tRNA. So basically, somewhere along the line in all of life, somewhere way back to Luca, this code got specified. And this code stands, but not 100%. There are a few codons that are actually do other things, and there are 2 other amino acids that are non-standard amino acids. So in some weird archaea and bacteria, these codons are a little bit different, but they're pretty much the same. And in your mitochondria, inside of your cells, it is a little bit different there too. So they have a slightly different coding mechanism. So let's see what else. Get rid of that and go back to my good notes.
Hey, while you're pausing, did you happen to take a look at that article I sent you about the very large macro level kind of bacteria?
Yes, except I don't know where I put it. Did you send it to me on text, or was it
text? Yeah, I sent it to you on text.
Okay. Anyway, okay. So this amino acid gets loaded up here. Okay, basically that's where it gets charged, and that's what determines the codon. And now, as it turns out, we don't need as many of these things as we have. Well, yeah, I guess we need all 37. They some of them will basically handle more codes, I believe, than one. They'll do, like you'll have one and it only cares about those first 2 letters, not the third one. So we have less than the 64 codes that we actually use, right? Because there's 64 possibilities for that 3 nucleotide codon. Okay. So anyway, it turns out that these things exist in 2 completely different classes of proteins. So if we go back to my list here, there's class 1 over on the, no, you can't see it. Damn it. How do I even switch over? I don't even know how to switch over with this thing. Oh, let me see if I can go over. No, I can't. Oh, yeah, for some reason you just can't see it on the screen. But anyway, the top ones are class 1 and class 2. They're 2 totally different kinds of protein, and they seem to have a separate source. And further, they found out that as it turns out, the group, there's only one amino acid that will be coded with both a class 1 and a class 2. So what that tells you is that back in prebiotic Earth, when things were just settling down, that number 1, it didn't use all 20 amino acids. And number 2, it didn't need all of these codons. So it only needed a few of them, or it could have been some different coding system. And eventually it ended up being this one. But now that we have this, because it is so important that we read the genome right, it is a highly conserved thing in all of life. So you'll find that these proteins do not mutate all that much in the areas that matter. And as it turns out, not a lot of the area matters. There's so basically, let me go back to this illustration. I am a shitty teacher, I know, but let's see. Why is that not turning on? Turn on, you little devil. What's happening? Okay, so back to this thing. Okay, so what happens is these proteins recognize a little bit of this area over here. They recognize the codon, and they recognize a little bit of this variable area and some other stray RNAs, basically, so that they recognize the right tRNA. Okay, and it's happenstance how that came about. So that happened with evolution and natural selection. There were probably many different solutions to this problem, and eventually we ended up with just this one solution, that sort of thing. So these massive protein complexes are they have in them different domains for doing different things. Like you'll have a domain that attaches this amino acid, and you'll have domains that recognize this and that recognize this or whatever. Okay, so it's a multiple domain protein, and it's sort of put together in a kind of a haphazard fashion. And what John can't imagine is that this could have happened naturally. Well, when you look at when you look at the data and you start looking into the proteins, you can see pathways for how this could have evolved from very, very much simpler proteins. Now, the other interesting thing, these AARSs, they're in charge of determining which code, right? And that's what they do. They load that tRNA with the right amino acid. As it turns out, some of them have weird, different domains that have been added on. Like we'll find them in frogs or us, and we'll find them in us, but we won't find them in frogs. So they have some additional domains, and it turns out these amino assholes end up doing more than one job. They have evolved to do more things biochemically than just this one function, right? Which also tells you that protein domains, these little tools that do things in life, they shuffle for a number of reasons. They shuffle around and they get added. And a protein like this will basically, somebody will have a mutation so that it will add an exon, and it will create an entirely new protein domain. And then this protein will go off and do something else happily. So it's all in flux. It's dynamic. And when you look at the data, you can see that there's a history to this thing. And when you start looking at the phylogenies and all that, well, the other thing about tRNAs is they do not map out carefully to the phylogenies that we're used to, which indicates that they are very, very old, like 3 billion years old. And what was B? I forgot what B was again. Sounds like Violent Femmes, the Violent Femmes song. You know what I'm talking about? 1, and then I forgot what 9 was for. I don't know. Anyway, I digress. But anyway, so they're very, very, very old. Oh, and the other thing is that there was a lot of horizontal gene transfer, which we know. When you go back into archaea and bacteria, when you go back 3 billion years, these things were exchanging genetic material all over the place in every which way. It was like a old Western saloon, a lot of promiscuity, that sort of thing, genes exchanging. But anyway,
God.
Well, what the hell? It was like the Old West, man, with 3 billion years ago. I'm sorry. Anyway, we have sex normally now. Back then, they just fucked any bacteria that came along. It was pretty much a mess. Okay. And I think, do you have questions about that? Do you understand how the codes, why they say the codes are arbitrary? Because these proteins could have been different. They could have loaded a different amino acid for the codon. So they're arbitrary. And that's why John believes in God, for that reason alone.
Because
Yeah.
they can't be arbitrary.
Because it couldn't have happened naturally. There had to be an intelligent designer. The other thing about this is, if you go back to this illustration, the point they make is that they say, oh, it's not a chemical reaction. And even Demeter will say it's not a chemical reaction because you have code recognition, right, down here. And it doesn't, and then we have an amino acid up here being attached, and there's no real connection in between. So there's no real chemistry between the codon and the amino acid that gets attached. It's not chemistry, it's more catalysis, or it's catalytic. It's not exactly a particular chemical reaction that's going on that's attaching this. So they will say it's arbitrary and it is not connected, that it's separated. And for this reason, they believe in God. So, and that's it. That was painful.
Well,
does-
you had one critique of your drawing and then one positive comment about it. So I think you broke even with that aspect of it.
Who's picking on my drawing, man?
I think it was Chris Peacock earlier.
Okay, should we ban him or?
I think
Because
No. Everybody should have their opinion.
no, Cell would ban him. Cell would ban him right away.
Would ban him just for being a regular for Answers in Atheism.
Yeah, my drawings suck for the most part. They suck. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, Maddox believes in God because he thinks God guided the hands of the surgeon that did brain surgery on him, and that's the reason why he believes in God. It's not has nothing to do with the amino acids and.
Well, that's his claim, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to find that criticism. Now I got to find it, man. I'm very
I
sensitive.
had it on the screen for quite a while.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, it's up
I was
for a ways.
busy. But yeah, because any criticism is welcome. I like to read. Kudos, I don't know, whatever. But okay, so
People are chit chatty.
that is the whole fucking contention with these people, is that this could not have happened naturally. Yet when you start looking, carefully into these sequences and into how the parts where they're similar and the parts where they're very different. And when you start looking back into how RNA and small peptides work, you can start to figure out how a much simpler ribosome, a much simpler tRNA charging system could have existed. In fact, that's what Demeter is working on with the paper. Demeter and I. Basically, how this came to be.
There's one critique right there on the screen.
That looks like a shit train drawing. Yeah.
Okay, and then there's another critique.
Really? Shit train. Okay. I've seen better drawings.
Aren't people just funny? The comedy that comes from our side chat is just incredible.
Yeah. I could draw better if I'm not online doing it in front of an audience. But this fucking drawing pad, for one thing, this pencil is kind of, it doesn't have enough resistance. But I can do it if I just calm the fuck down. But I can't do it very well if.
It's a poor workman who blames his tools. Sorry.
Ooh,
Well,
Sorry.
man, zing. Also, Chris is trying to back his way out of it now.
Oh, he is, eh?
Yeah, he's just.
Well, we had one Christian in the what is it? Blessed be he. Is that Richard's relative, brother, sister, something?
He was here?
Yeah.
You're thinking of B just B.
Yeah. So that's
No,
a different
Different
so
person.
this one's a different person. Okay.
It's blessed be he.
Right, but I didn't know if that was a screen name that
So he either worships
used.
God or he worships what is it, Michael Behe?
Yes. Blessed
Oh,
be he.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
is that where that comes from? Oh my
So,
God!
yeah, maybe. Yeah, I guess so.
Could go
Oh,
either
you
way.
gotta find a better hero. Fuck, Bob Dylan. I don't know.
Oh, well, I got to get going. This headset's about to die.
Okay.
So I got to charge this back up, but I've got a few other things to do too. So, but thanks for
Okay,
having me on for a little bit.
Great to have you come and chat with us.
Yep. Thanks for coming, Jeff.
Yeah, always fun. You guys take it easy. See ya.
Yep.
See you, Jeff.
Let's throw the link out because we don't have too much more. We can go over a few little Maddoxisms here, I suppose. I don't know what else I have. There was this other guy that came in. Let me see here. At 210? Let's see what we got at 210. Start cam and put on YouTube. No, not that one. That one.
Ooh, that was rude.
Like the Dennis Noble group and all that stuff they're pushing forward, right? Like that whole group is not giving up on some form of evolution, but it's pretty much just dismissing modern synthesis, right? And saying like this is not even remotely plausible. It's not coherent. They're not creationists, but they're sure as heck not, traditional neo-Darwinians. But on the interactions that we're having on YouTube and such, it's like, no, it's either this way or the other way.
Yeah. Okay, he's talking about the third way, like Dennis Noble and a bunch of other people that are basically pushing for the extended synthesis, which is the kind of the new guys on the block for evolution, where they're trying to make a point that evolution is much more complicated than just mutations and selection, right? Which everybody knows. Dr. Dan gets mad because it's like, we knew that. Okay, we knew that. And it becomes even more complicated because like a species can enter an environment and culturally change that environment. And the fact that they change that environment has to do with their evolution. So it's a bunch of circles and a bunch of different multi-level hierarchies feeding back into each other. And evolution, has no real easy formula. And when you start looking into, like, the big thing with creationists is like, oh, look how complex it is. Look at God's wonder. Well, by the time you found your 1000th complex molecular mechanism for doing something, you start to get the idea that this is a big fucking shit show. I mean, like, anything can happen, right? There are so many different codes and different things going on in cells that it's a wonder that we don't all get cancer right away and die when we're like 1 month old. I mean, it's amazing because there's so many different opportunities for change in genomes and in cells. And so he's talking about the third way. So, and I think I'm trying to figure out where this, there's a new guy that came in. This guy actually kind of starts to make sense. Where's he at here? What is his name? Ray Giordano. Does anybody know him?
I'm not familiar with that one.
Okay. Oh, and the other
I've
thing.
seen him before, but maybe the name sounds familiar, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has been. I have been kind of busy lately. I've got a puppy. 2 quarters of biochemistry, and it seemed to me like I knew more about biochemistry than he did. It was just stunning to hear him just. Well, he seems to think that DNA, and a lot of atheists, I think this, that DNA is consumed when it's read instead of just being read and then translated, and the RNA, for that matter, so they seem to think is consumed.
I don't think that's the case.
What's he mean by translated?
Okay, when you got a strand of mRNA, the ribosome reads it and turns it into a protein, and then another ribosome will grab it and make another protein and another one.
Does transmutation seem like a better word for that than translate?
No, translation is the proper term.
Oh, and it's a scientific context. It's a little different. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love it if they would use theory in the scientific context too when talking science. Then,
Yeah. But I don't, the average person might think that, but who cares? The average person doesn't fucking study molecular biology for their entire lives, right?
Yeah.
So people are going to make mistakes.
You know, what you said about culture changing earlier, it's something can join and change the culture. You know, at the micro level they were talking about, we see it here with humans as well, like human societies. Somebody joins a society and they can have quite an impact on it and change the whole culture. It's one person can make a huge difference. So it looks like evolution doesn't have any stopping point.
Yeah. And a person, basically a change in culture can change who we mate with and can actually go down and change the DNA because it is going to be selected for, right?
So it goes in both directions. That's a good point.
Yeah. And there's no direction for it. It's not becoming more complex or better engineered or whatever. It's just going somewhere. And hopefully that somewhere is not extinction. But
hey, by the way, I just want to say I really like the diagrams you were drawing earlier. It reminds me of some stuff the teachers were doing in elementary school, similar kind of style of drawing. It brings back a lot of fond memories. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I do mean it. It was nice to see it. It really makes it easy to follow with those style of drawings. It's actually really good that you do it that way.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I thought that was a sidewise dig.
No, I'm serious. I think it is good. It's good style. You've got the black background with the nice colors coming up. It really does make it easier to understand what you're explaining.
Yeah, mostly it helps me think when I'm doodling.
Yeah. Well, doodle more. It's great because all it like people tend to be able to grasp the concepts better if they have two input sources rather than one. So you're providing them with two sources: your voice, what you're saying, and then the drawings as well. So really, it's a great teaching tool.
Yep, helps me. So what was I going to say? Oh shit!
Translation.
Oh yeah. There's two things. There's two words: transcription, which happens in the nucleus, where the DNA is transcribed or transcribed into RNA. So that's one step, right? First step, and that's just a copy from one to the other. Almost an exact copy. From DNA to RNA. And then the mRNA, which is messenger RNA that gets produced, leaves the nucleus, hits the ribosome, and it becomes translated into proteins. And the reason why we would say translated is because it is being turned into a very, very different compound entirely. DNA is not very different than protein, right? So it's translated from mRNA to a protein. So transcribed and translated. Transcribed happens first. And those terms are used so ubiquitously that it's a really good idea for everybody to get an idea what they are, what the difference is. When you first start out, it kind of fucks you up because you keep interchanging them until you realize the logic behind them or whatever. So anyway, but it is a chemical reaction, and there are reasons for those particular genes to be in your genome, and those genes in your genome are what determine what the translation is, what the code is. So when people say, is it a code? Yeah, it's a code, but it's not the kind of code the creationists are thinking about, that some designer had to create the code. Not that kind of code. It's a happenstance code, more like a river going through a valley and, turning this way and turning that way. It's entirely natural. And I can basically, these guys don't seem to have any imagination or creativity at all. And they don't seem to have any knowledge about real simple organic chemistry and what abiotic Earth was like. They think the entire thing was this big pool of pudding, right? That it was all like you take a bunch of chemicals and you throw them into a pool and mix them up, and out springs life. The Earth was nothing like that. It wasn't fucking pudding, you know? And that's what they keep going back to, that this thing had to spontaneously develop randomly, you know, that sort of thing, through sheer chance. And
Yeah,
there's
and,
stuff,
and then one after another. In other words, you don't just have random occurrences, at least with the creationist idea of randomness, you have like the serial, sequential kind of randomness
Right.
where one change has to be made, and only then can the next change be made.
Yeah.
And then only next can you have the other change. When, you know, if you look at the stuff that Dr. Dan and Dapper Dino and Gutset Gibbon has been doing, things can happen. You know, you can get mutations throughout a population. You can have all those mutations throughout a population, and eventually they get put in the right order through recombination or genetic drift or whatever.
Right. And they don't understand how proteins are really very flexible. I mean, you can change a lot about a protein before it stops working. And there's only a handful of little areas called domains that actually are really, really important to the function of the protein. And one protein will have anywhere from 1 to 20 domains, you know, that do different parts of the puzzle. And in evolution, these things can get shuffled. And one of the things that shuffle them is retrotransposons, but we're not going to talk about that today. But anyway, domain shuffling. And these guys, I think this Ray Giordano laughs at domain shuffling, but domain shuffling is very real in evolution. These little tools get mixed around and stuck together in different ways.
We need to not forget about horizontal gene transfer too, because you get genes that never would have arisen in a lineage that just because of because the virus brought it over.
Yeah. The virus and bacteria do horizontal.
Bacteria can do it too. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's that snail that does the chlorophyll thing. I think that was bacteria that transferred that as well. Yeah. There we go. Top Dog's got our back.
Yep. And I think prebiotic Earth, the first billion years, I think there was a mess, and it wouldn't have even been okay to talk about a species, because I think every single prokaryote had its own little bag of chemicals, basically its own little composition.
Essentially a bag of proteins, right? Just
proteins and RNAs, you know, mixed together, and carbohydrates. They have a really big part in it too. So it had its own little bag of molecules, and these things were interchanging, and they were eating each other. They were attacking each other's parasites. There was just all of this, you know, like the Wild West. Like I said, a saloon in the Wild West. There was a lot of saliva being exchanged.
And we still see that on like the microbial scale. I mean,
yes,
they are still battling one another and swapping genes and stealing genes, and you know.
But I mean, you know, if you went back and you tried to find the code for DNA, if you went back to the first 500 million years or whatever, you would find hundreds and hundreds of codes, and you would find codes that were not a sure thing. They were kind of fuzzy codes.
A lot of dead codes, right?
There'd be a lot of statistical fuzzy codes that just happened to produce more of this one thing than everything else, and it would have been on a bell curve. And the whole thing settled down, and when it settled down, life just ignited, and multicellularity ignited as soon as it settled down on one particular, you know, pathway.
Yeah, baby.
So there's a lot of noise.
Don't forget how oxygen is much more reactive.
Yeah.
Than carbon, right? Or carbon dioxide, I mean.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, a little bit of both.
Yeah, when the atmosphere started changing over to oxygen, you had an entirely new environment. Not overnight, fucking millions and millions of years, and 500 million years.
Yeah, the animals that breathe the carbon dioxide produced oxygen. That's how it changes, but it takes a long time for all those little microbes to do that. Yeah.
So the weird thing is,
kind of.
I think people that subscribe to naturalism or believe in evolution have a worship of complexity, and we understand complexity in many different combinations. And creationists sort of want everything, like, if it doesn't come from the Bible, they don't want to talk about it. I mean, it has to be this real simple story for them. So my accusation against them is that they're not creative. They have no creativity.
There's this ridiculous notion, like they brought up respiration and stuff, that our gas exchange would not that biological gas exchange cannot fluctuate the environment, cannot have an impact on that, on the makeup of the atmosphere. It's ridiculous. Like this the dinosaurs farting themselves to extinction thing is what mostly comes to mind. But even respiration, I mean, we had plants that basically caused the extinction event because they got so good at breathing that they changed the makeup of the oxygen in the environment and killed themselves. It's called the rainforest collapse.
Isn't there a neat parallel? And they don't believe that man can dig up enough coal and oil to fuck the environment up.
Right. Yeah. It's and organisms have been having an impact on the atmosphere since, at least that big extinction event, at least as far back as we can tell to that. And I'm sure we can look back even further, and we'll keep going back further and further and being able to pick up on these, how gas exchange impacted the atmosphere at different various times in the Paleozoic.
Moderation is key for survival.
Right.
And I think that's where that third way of evolution comes in, that they're starting to look more at this interplay between geochemistry and the environment and the atmosphere and the oceans and life. I mean, it was one big evolving, monster of a machine.
Yeah, I mean, they have to. They don't just get to overturn evolution and it's done. You have to also compensate for the things that are explained by evolution that we now need an explanation, like the different makeup of the atmosphere throughout the history of Earth. They're gonna have to have an explanation for that sort of things. They don't think about that. All they think about is, we just have to have an explanation for like speciation. No, and there's so many things that are interwoven, gears working together to make this machine keep turning.
Yeah. Who was
it's like how atoms keep working themselves, like how's the energy to keep them spinning and stuff. It's like how life keeps going too. It's added energy to somewhere.
So I put a link to your. Okay, that's a link to Brainbug's site, Scott, that you put out there.
It is, yes, it's his channel. It's at the channel level there. Yeah, Brainbug. I just wanted to commend you once again on a great Saturday morning event. Your normal. That's where you. What do you title it again?
Live from the Hive.
Live from the Hive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where you did your the birds sweeping down to pick up children.
Yeah,
and, you read kind of did a critique of Job.
Yeah.
And all that stuff, and it was very well paced. It was a real good pacing of your content.
I had to actually add an extra half an hour in there because I was part of that fundraiser, and my time slot was 2 hours. I usually run for an hour and a half. We did really good on that fundraiser, though. For all things considered, how fast we kind of threw it together, because it was like a week in planning and then a week to go trying to help out the lavender lady. The fundraiser is still open, though, so if anybody has a couple of bucks, they can throw it. At that, I can drop the link in the side chat. But we did a fundraiser this Saturday. It's help somebody. They're getting a kidney transplant. That's going to happen now. From what I understand, that's like in the works. So that's going to happen. What we're raising money for is kind of the aftercare, making sure someone's there to take care of her because she doesn't have a lot of family and stuff in the area, but she's part of our community. So trying to help
all of that would have been so well alleviated had we a single payer system or where we have that social safety net of one. Medical bills can destroy futures. Imagine having kids, and then you come down as a parent with a severe cancer or and all your plans for college are just thrown up in the air because you have to deal with incredible medical bills. And until something like that happens, it's up to us to help each other.
Right. And I was just talking to someone at work today because part of my job that I've been doing here for the last few months has been reaching out to people who their medications aren't covered or whatever to help them come up with a treatment plan.
Mm-hmm.
So I talk to people that are talking about that stuff all the time, especially with the pharmaceuticals. They'll talk to me about medical stuff too, but with pharmaceutical costs, it's ridiculous. Guy was saying to me that any prescription drug that's life-saving that costs over $10, the person who charges you that much should be put in jail. And I'm like, well, you expect me to disagree with you here?
Yeah.
There's a drug that I take for COPD called Spiriva.
Mm-hmm.
And without insurance, it would cost me $1,600 a month. And with insurance, it's like $160 a month. But you can buy it in Mexico for $7 a month.
Right. All these countries that the people I want to say, oh, they're hellscapes, or like what Trump called them. He called them shitholes. But yeah, you can get your freaking prescription drugs there. You could, you aren't gonna.
Yeah, he like Cuba's got a good reputation for having low cost medication too.
Yeah. And that's what Bernie Sanders said and got all that backlash for.
Yeah, and then Canada, I know Trump says that we have a heroin epidemic, and he was going to build a wall between Canada and the U.S. as well and make us pay for it. That never happened. I'm not kidding. He did say this.
Oh, you guys would like that if we built a wall.
No, we don't, because we actually value the trade going back and forth.
No, you actually like us?
Yeah, we like to visit. We like going to Disneyland. We like going to all these different places, and we like it when Americans visit here too. It's nice to get along with your neighbor,
I've got to somehow plan a vacation somewhere in Canada.
Well, if BC is a possibility, let me know. We'll go for a drink or something when you're here.
Okay.
Yeah, that would, if I went to Canada, that's where I would go. Is where
Vancouver. Yeah, they've got some geology very much like what we have in Washington and other states.
Well, being a local here, I can tell you all the great places to go and whether or not which ones are tourist traps, and then you can decide where to go, right?
Yeah, I'll have to just see about that.
You see any bugs there, brain bug?
I see a beetle. I saw a true bug. I see some moths. I see some different orthopterans. Is that a mantid fly? So we got some diptera.
Got a lot of stuff, a lot of variety here, it looks like.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. The variety in insects.
Yeah.
In your backyard.
How much are we keeping track of what's happening in the insect population as far as evolution goes? I mean, there have got to be just tons of stuff that we don't know that's going on, that's changing out there.
We're finding things right and left that are just bizarre. It's good to have access to so much science news through YouTube and other points of access.
Yeah.
Like those giant bacteria, I sent you, and just every week we're coming across bugs that are just new and different. And of course, I keep watching Brain Bug's channel just because he always has such good insight on our insect world.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I've heard.
Oh, go ahead, Randolph.
I've heard said before that the smaller the life form is, the faster the evolution cycles are, so there can be a lot more diversity with smaller creatures. Is that true?
We would expect that. I mean, statistically speaking, depends on the generational cycle time. So the faster an organism reproduces, is born, can reproduce, and dies, the faster the evolution is going to be, just from the generational scale there.
That's why we see so many different species of birds, a lot more than, say, different variations of cats.
Yeah, and it's a lot easier for small generalist animals to survive extinction events and to survive like we can see that they survive well, like rodents and things survive well in the wake of humans too, which is
And the other thing is population flow. Like if you like look at an average forest up in Ely, Minnesota, like a mile square, if you got a population of insects, if they don't fly, if they're just crawly insects, there are going to be isolated populations all over the place, and each one of the populations can diverge, over time. And so there's like this big, this flow. If you imagine populations as like a lava lamp, with these like groups of things fingers that come out and they flow and they break off. And I mean, there's an amazing amount of research that needs to be done on these guys.
Yeah.
So,
It matters how much environment change and how many they can give off like offsprings too. How many chances of different mutations.
Well,
but even without environment change, just the fact that they're segregated, they're going to start to diverge immediately because of drift. And
well, take note of the population that you have there, the diversity that you have there on your display, and think that 200 years ago it would have been 20 times that, and that some of the species or some of the subspecies that were going to diverge into species were kind of, when we came along, they were kind of pushed back into single species to start reproducing with their distant cousins, because all the ones in their population died, and just kind of forcing them together with other subspecies and isolating them.
Go back out again. Oh, and
but like cicadas, they would probably take a longer time to have difference in their gene pool because of how long they take.
The 17-year cicadas.
Yeah.
So there are cicadas that
Getting
reproduce every season. So there are some that are diversifying. But there are ones.
It's a big mystery of how to really category of how evolution works for this different sizes, and it's not all.
These guys have been sitting out on this tray for a couple of weeks, so they're pretty desiccated.
Yeah, you better cook them real quick or they'll spoil.
Gotta cook them quick, yeah.
Hey, I put a link. If you look in the private chat on the very bottom, that's to Joe Scott. He has a great channel. And today he dealt with the weakening of the Gulf Stream, and then one other kind of water, Gulf cycle or ocean cycle or whatever that has big impact on temperatures and sea levels and things like that. It's very interesting, and it would be a good way to a good touch point, a good starting place for learning about the ocean systems and how they affect our life.
Did he do one on the polar vortex? That name sounds familiar.
Joe Scott. Let me see. I'll just kind of go look through his content.
That name sounds familiar for someone I was talking about the opening up of the Northwest Passage or whatever.
That's part. He mentions the Northwest Passage in this video, although I'm sure he could have dedicated another video to it.
Yeah.
I will go ahead and put that in the description. There's another guy I ran into this week. His name is Berger. I think Berger. He's a paleontologist and a geologist, and he does a lot of stuff on geology and sandstones. He did like classification of sandstones, and he does some stuff on paleontology. And I'll see if I can find him and put him in our description. He's a new channel that I just found that is really good. So let's see. Copy.
Well, speaking of Burger, there's going to be a Bob's Burger movie apparently come up.
Oh my!
Saw that when I went to see the Batman. I saw the trailer.
Is it done by the same people as Batman or not?
No.
That's too bad.
No relation to Batman.
That's too bad. So anyway, I got to talk about it. So
what are you gonna talk about?
Found a kidney on my tumor about 2 months ago.
Reverse that. A tumor on your kidney.
Or tumor on my kidney. Kidney on my tumor, right? That's what it would have been if I'd let the insurance companies and healthcare have their way with me. But so anyway, so I was pretty stressed out about this, but I caught it very, very early.
Oh,
and
good.
I have like a 99% survival rate where I'm at.
Oh,
And,
that's so good.
yeah, and but I said basically the hospitals here in Minneapolis. Okay, I was dealing with them, and I talked to him, and the doctor was basically telling me things about insurance and telling me things about his schedule and how busy he was, and he didn't tell me anything about my health at all. And I was like, I was extremely agitated because dying of cancer is fair. Okay, at my age, it's fair. Dying of getting the wrong care or making the wrong decision as to who cares for me, now that I don't want to do. I don't want to die from being dumb, right? For making the wrong choice.
Or just being unlucky, yeah. What if you had decided not to go with that gut that says this guy's not got my care
right
foremost in his mind? What if you just accepted it? Well, that would have affected your life outlook.
Yeah. So then I was scheduled for surgery, and it turns out the surgery has a 22% chance of complications and about a 10% chance of metastasis, which would have fucked me over and probably ended my life, within the next 3 years. And so I decided to go to the Mayo Clinic for a second opinion, and I had a meeting this morning, and I'm switching over my care to the Mayo, and they're going to freeze the tumor off, which is something that carries maybe a 6% chance of, issues, and the issues are minor. And where my tumor is happens to be, the guy told me, he said, you got a lot of fat. And he said, that's really good because that means that, there's no chance of hurting anything else. So it turns out that being fat finally paid off, which is cool. But anyway, I had a 45-minute visit with a guy who is just an amazing person, trained at Johns Hopkins and Rice University, and works at the Mayo now, and gave me just really relaxed me as far as, my worry about mortality and stuff. But the whole thing with the hospitals here seems to be about what insurance you have. And they say things to you like, we'd give you a CAT scan, but we're afraid we'd find something. And then we'd have to treat it, right? And that's what happened to me. They found something and they have to treat it. And if they hadn't found it in about 10 years, I would have died of kidney cancer. But they consider that a bad thing. That's how you're so I guess the point I want to make to everybody out there is when it comes to healthcare for you or your children, you have to go in and advocate for yourself because nobody else is going to advocate for you. And you have to be constantly mindful that these doctors are being driven by the system rather than you'll find good doctors that aren't like that. And I found one this morning. But a lot of them are just, and it isn't their fault. They're not bad people. They're being driven nuts by the system, right?
That's right. They have like really. I can see tension on my doctor's face when he starts to go from 10 to 15 minutes. Because I'm supposed to get out of there soon, but I have a whole bunch of questions.
Yeah.
And so that just, and a lot of doctors, they just go, who cares? Some of them don't. I don't know what makes one doctor one way and another doctor another way, but we're victims of this corporate, and let's go ahead and use, because Young Earth Creationists like that word so much, this factory oriented kind of medical care where let's get them in and get them out and look at what does their insurance cover, and so it's like you go down so many different paths, and the quality of your care and the severity of the outcome is going to vary based on so many random and not healthy limits and parameters.
Yeah.
Now I want to take that idea and turn it over to Randolph and ask him, in your medical care system, when you've had to go in and get care, has it been more like the get them in and out in 15 minutes? Has it been more like the Mayo Clinic? What's the experience in catching stuff early, and then once you need treatment, getting the treatment and quality you need? Is Randolph there?
I think he is. Yeah, he's muted.
Okay.
He is-
I wonder
he is
if he
stepped
heard
away.
me. He might have stepped away. I didn't even look at that.
Minnie Karen put a video up. Kent Hovind doesn't exist. What the fuck? I don't know what that one is. Let's see. Kent Hovind. I'll put that in the description. Hovind. I wonder what that one's about. Who did that? David John Wellman. I don't know who that is. Another
What
new
if-
person.
What if the government just gave Mayo Clinic a huge butt ton of money to open up clinics and hospitals and healthcare facilities across the nation? I wonder if that would be the thing to do.
But I wonder if it would ruin them.
True.
Yeah, because right now they make enough money just serving people, and they're the place that kings and queens go, and presidents. So I don't know. I know a really good doctor that retired 10 years early because he couldn't stand the system anymore. He gets so tired of being pushed around, and he was the one that always would do. He would always do diagnostics on me, and you don't find many doctors like that anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is Randolph back?
I don't know.
Randolph's gone. Just see his
Maybe
icon.
he's having Wi-Fi issues or something.
Let's see what this Hovind thing is.
Inmate 0645217, young Earth creationist, convicted tax evader, and, as of this recording, convicted domestic abuser, does not exist. The reason I know he does not exist is that for 20 years I have run a $500,000 challenge for Kent to prove his own existence. Kent knows, or would know if he existed, that the challenge is fair because it is modeled after his own $250,000 challenge to prove evolution. Specifically, the claimant is not entitled to independently verify the existence of any funds that might be awarded as a result of a successful claim. The claimant will provide evidence for his claim to Dr. David John Wellman, who will forward it to a panel of judges who shall be the sole decider as to whether the claimant has succeeded in proving his claim. Dr. David John Wellman will facilitate all communication between the claimant and the judges and will act as a first filter in deciding which claims or which evidence will be forwarded to the judges. The claimant is not entitled to know the identity of the judges nor to independently verify the existence of the judges. This offer is for entertainment purposes only and is not legally enforceable contract in the United States or its federal territories. So clearly the challenge is fair because these were Kent's own terms. So all Kent has to do for a cool $500,000 is to provide evidence that he exists. He hasn't because he can't because he doesn't exist. Period. End of file. Game over. Kent Hovind doesn't exist. You're done.
Awesome.
Well, good. That's a load off my mind.
Yeah.
What does it mean to exist?
Uh-oh. You need to go to Danny's channel. So, anyway.
No, it's about confirming or verifying, like anything else in reality.
Existence is a pretty low bar, actually. And it's really not as complicated as people like to make it.
Think about it. So many things don't exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Docu-series from Chris Peacock. We'll have to go check that one out. God, you guys are just full of links.
Things that don't exist,
thoughts?
including things that can't exist, don't exist. It's a huge number.
Is that Randolph?
Yeah, sorry about the noise earlier.
No, there was no noise. We asked you a
My phone
question.
was going crazy.
Got no response and no response and no response. So I'm glad you're back.
Yeah, I had a phone call. I'm sorry. I didn't want to leave though. But you want to show me something here? Or?
Well, no, we had we were
No.
having a discussion about American healthcare, and I was asking you, is your experience in healthcare in Canada more like the 15 minutes, get them through, let's see what their insurance will permit, and get them out of here?
No.
And if you have a doctor who, isn't willing to say fuck the rules, will you get just kind of blah care, or will you get excellent care versus the Mayo Clinic experience where Speed said he was walked around for 45 minutes and questions answered and options given and things like that?
Yeah, so like my observation from hearing Speed just talking about that, it's very sad that the focus is so strongly on money there. Like here, we make appointment with our family physician and then we go and see them. Not a word is said about any costs or anything, and there's no bill to pay. We just go in and they see us, and they have typically they get their focus is on the patient here and the patient's health. That's all we talk about. Is how we don't talk about the cost at all. The only time cost will come up might be at prescription writing time, when they say, okay, we can go with a name brand, or we can go with something, an alternative that's pretty much the same with slight differences in the patents, but it'll cost less. And that's the closest we get to it, really. And then it's basically like we can go to unless there's once in a while there's a case where the physician will recommend a specific brand of medication for a condition, but most of the time they'll just kind of write it down, and if the pharmacist gives you a cheaper alternative, that's no problem, and that's it. And then the healthcare programs that we're on, like where my wife's employer is actually got a really good program, so the medication is covered at least 80% every time. The cost of it. So it really doesn't amount to much. A lot of the time it's even covered 100%. But even for people who aren't, the Canadian government here regulates what the costs are for medications, and pharmaceutical companies complain about it bitterly, but they still continue to sell their medication here because it's still profitable. So, it's just they want to profit more, and our healthcare was brought in by a politician named Tommy Douglas. So if you look into Tommy Douglas's history, you can learn a lot more about how it started. And it is good. Whenever the conservative government is in power here, though, they tend to try to strip away things on healthcare, and because the lobby groups like them, because lobby groups want to have all of this stuff privatized. Because the insurance companies and the various other companies make a lot more money that way. So I really like it that we have it here. Our coverage isn't full, though. It doesn't cover absolutely everything, but it covers a lot. And so you can walk into a hospital and they'll see you right away. It's no problem. And billing is not first and foremost kind of thing that's brought up ever. Certain things aren't covered, and then of course there is issue of covering there, but then I think there's some government assistance programs that can even help people with it. So if you're going to the hospital for cancer treatment, it's not costing you extra. It's all just taken care of here.
It's even worse here, Randolph, because they don't talk about money here either. But if you press them,
insurance, right?
Yeah, well, even that, if you press them, you'll figure out that that's why they're making decisions, but they don't tell you that's why they're making decisions.
Oh, okay. I was going by what you said earlier. I must have misunderstood. Right. Okay.
No, they basically, your care is being designed by the insurance company, but they're not going to tell you that. You have to dig around and figure it out yourself. And then slowly you'll get them to admit that, oh, well, we can't do this because of that and all that shit. Yeah. And it is, and that is insidious, because we're being, basically our lives are in the hands of people that are being controlled by rules that we don't even understand, right?
And they're complicated so that it makes it hard for anybody to understand. So people will usually just give up and go away. And I suspect sometimes that's the reason for the complication. Now, the picture you just had up there, that's talking about stuff in the 1960s. So when Tommy Douglas was bringing in national health care, which a lot of people call universal for some reason, it should just be called national, because that's what they call it in UK, I believe. They call it an NHS, National Health Care System. Their coverage there is better than here in Canada, by the way. But here we're pretty good. Like, we don't have dental care covered, but I think NHS probably does, as I heard. So what's happening here with the strike? This is something you might, as Americans, think is really cool. A bunch of Canadian doctors here were opposed to national health care. They wanted to keep the practice private. So Tommy Douglas put the call out to other countries if anybody wanted to come and help us get privatized. And then a whole bunch of doctors from the USA came and volunteered their services here.
Wow.
Yeah. And that helped put it forward. That really helped a lot.
I put a link to this in the description, so if anybody wants to check it out.
So there you go. So if you're going to be doing, your politicians are going to work on privatizing or making it public healthcare, a national healthcare system, definitely have them look into the history of Tommy Douglas, because that might help them to strategize how to approach it better.
Yep.
Go ahead, Braindog.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say as far as saying, oh, the benefits, the coverage is built by the insurance company. That's definitely definitely true, but it's definitely insidious. As you were saying, what they do is they make these contracts with the medical providers, with the pharmaceutical companies to set prices, set a contracted price and a retail price. They all collaborate together to do this. And they set that price high enough that you can't afford it without the insurance. And then the insurance can say, we're not telling you can't get this procedure done. We're not telling you can't get this medication. We're telling you that it's not covered on the plan.
Yeah.
So you'll have to pay for it out of pocket. But then they have these contracts that drive the prices way up because we have to have that in the U.S. because runaway capitalism, I guess, would be the best way to describe it. Because there's no regulation on how high they can raise these prices. It's free market. So free market is built on what's the most people are willing to pay for this service or product. You don't do that with people's lives.
Wasn't there somebody who had some kind of medication for AIDS treatment or something? Maybe it wasn't AIDS, but he bought the company and then he increased the price like
700% or something like that. Yeah.
Sorry, did he go to jail? Didn't he go to jail for that?
No, he's still running the company.
Now, how much was it 1,600% or something?
I think it was like closer to like 700%, but that's not uncommon in the U.S. Most of our drugs are at least 150% more expensive than they are in the rest of the world.
And this is where I strongly favor government regulation and heavy regulation on it, because these are life and death matters for people, and the government's primary fundamental role is to protect its citizens. And this is such a wonderful way for the government to do this and do it in a way that it still allows these companies to have lots of room for profit instead of ridiculously Rothschild's level room for profit. It needs to be regulated because people's lives are in the balance, and if people can't afford it, they get very sick or they die. Like, this is not good for society. It ends up costing everybody more in the end run. In the end,
pharmaceutical companies there's hardly any difference between the way they operate and oil companies operate. They misinformation campaigns against against competitors.
Well, that drug that Spiriva that I take for COPD, 60 times more expensive in the US than it is in Mexico right now, because they tripled the price in Mexico. But a couple of years ago, it was 180 times more. 180 times what I paid in Mexico.
And keep in mind that these companies, they're not all American companies. Like Novo Nordisk is not an American company. That's one of the biggest pharmaceutical companies in the world, especially when it comes to diabetic medications.
Yeah.
They're in I believe they're in Sweden, but they make their profit margins in the US. So basically the US funds their operation, and the rest of the world just gets their insulin. Most of it's covered in most countries. Insulin's covered 100% under your universal health plan, right?
The high prices in the U.S. are subsidizing the rest of the world. Right. Boy, the Republicans are just going to love that, aren't they?
Well, they don't mention that out loud.
No, of course not.
Well, see, the pharmaceutical companies have the lobbyists that go to the Capitol, and they basically give them legislation to draft, and they're not going to mention that because the marketing team at whatever pharmacy company doesn't want them to. Yeah. So but it's because the pharmaceutical companies are paying for the representatives, that's the corruption in our government. Mostly the business is telling the representatives what to do rather than the people of the United States.
Yeah. That's what's wrong with our system. That's one of our broken cogs right there. Privatized healthcare in general is it's ridiculous. It shouldn't have never been a thing ever.
There was a company here quite a few years ago, over maybe 2 decades ago here, they started a private health care firm, and it was quite controversial in the news, which I think was more just a publicity stunt than anything. But that's not a new thing. You can still hire private physicians here. It's not a very commonly offered service because most people just go to their family doctors, and including a lot of the stingy rich people, they'll still utilize the public health care and yet complain bitterly about it when they're up on stage. It's a funny situation.
Right. I mean, my career, my job is tied to privatized healthcare. It's which is kind of ironic. I lobby. I vote against my interest there because I the interest of the people and my my culture, my fellow Americans. I care about them a lot more than I do some corporation. I can get a different job if they get some universal health care. I'll get a job in that sector. I'm qualified for it, but I just want to help as many people as possible. And yeah, I can do that inch by inch right now with what I'm doing. But if universal health care was ever accepted in the US, I would just turn that whole thing over. It would be a victory, an overall victory for what I've been fighting for this whole time.
Yeah.
Bug, have you seen that movie, The Incredibles?
The cartoon movie?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The series?
That I guess you probably must have had some appreciation for Mr. Incredible and his desk job when he was helping that little old lady.
Oh yeah.
Right. Yeah. I do. Yeah. That's kind of how I function through my day. I do get to help little old ladies, and that's always satisfying.
Or whoever needs it. Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody. Yeah. You deal with some tough customers too. Some people who want to be all angry about it, but there's contracts involved that we cannot, that I can't help you with, but I can help you work within the confines of that contract. And that's with any thing you sign on for when you sign up for insurance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and dealing with all that, there's one component that has got to be bad for your recovery, no matter what situation you're in, is the stress created by having to deal with all these agencies, financial
stress.
Yeah, and insurance companies and others, and just finding those options. Imagine being weak and tired from chemo, or got a disease and you're just not yourself, and you don't like dealing with paperwork anyway, but here's all this paperwork. Who wants to think about doing the paperwork when you're trying to deal with what will make you live
right
for the future?
Not everybody has somebody to help them with it either. A lot of these people are alone.
Yeah.
So that's where I really hope that like when Obama was running things, I was thinking, oh, this is great. You guys are heading toward getting national health care. That's going to be so good for you. And then the whole society benefits so much. Like the country, you guys want to, like the politicians want to make America a greater country. That's one of the best ways to go. One of the best things that they could do to make it happen,
Yeah.
But that's socialism.
Yeah. So is military service.
Well, then basically Obamacare was designed by the insurance companies for the most part, and it ended up being nothing like it could have been,
Corporate Democrat.
Well, didn't the Republicans come in and destroy a whole bunch of it right away as well?
Yes, they did.
Were Republicans who were in the pockets of these big pharmaceutical companies for the most part are the ones who put all these amendments and things in. Like if you look at the ACA list, that's the Affordable Care Act, covered medications that are covered at 100% on anybody and everybody who has insurance, and everybody has to have insurance now because the ACA. So there's these lists, different lists. There's the preventive list, there's the contraceptive list, and there's just the main ACA list, mostly preventative stuff. And it just keeps getting smaller and smaller every year, less and less on there. Because, it was that, you had to cover everything in this drug class. It's like, you only have to cover a certain amount of them. You only have to have at least one of them now. So it just keeps shrinking and shrinking.
Wow.
Because the companies that contract these plans, these I'm gonna get myself in trouble. I better shut up. These politicians that are bought by them lobby for these on their behalf. It's and so they set the prices on these, and they decide that, oh yeah, if it's gonna be free, it's gonna be this one, and then everybody else can get this one. It's just gross.
Yeah, and then like military service, what I was alluding to, by the way, is that people can go and get a free education and all this kind of thing just by in exchange for providing service there. And the quality of the education is quite good, as I understand, compared to what's available in the public system.
Yeah. There are some services.
Another situation. I'm sorry. I was just going to point out another situation brought up by Gurumania having to do with just everyday kind of stuff.
Jesus Christ. Tell her not to use cement.
You see somebody in Gurumania's situation there that he's writing, speaking of healthcare, his friend thinks that she just broke her foot and she can't go to the doctor because she has no healthcare. She can't afford the bill. So here in Canada, it's different. Like, you get a broken bone, you can go to the hospital and they'll take care of you right away and it'll all be handled. Now, if you're not a Canadian citizen, then of course they'll figure out the billing afterwards. But for Canadians, we're covered.
They'll take you, but they'll ruin your credit if you can't pay them. Eventually.
There you go.
What's the actually
yet another dimension of how it's just screwing everybody.
But you see, we have to do that. Otherwise, our healthcare system will become very expensive for taxpayers if people who are not citizens come here and use it and don't pay for it. Well,
yeah, I understand that.
Because there'd be a lot of demand from a lot of people in the U.S. I know for sure would come up here and be taking up our hospital beds and stuff if they could, right? Because they're not getting it in the U.S. So that's a bit of a problem because
that would kind of make us look like a third world country, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and I know people here who are not happy with having to work with wait lists. One of the downsides with public health care is that you do sometimes have to wait for other people. And so they need to prioritize and queue things, and they do their best to try to prioritize the more urgent matters first. Because if somebody's in a major situation that they need the treatment right away, then you got to make them the priority, of course. Because there's other people who they don't need the treatment right away and they can wait, and we only have so many resources. So we do have to juggle this stuff around, and it is the same problem with a private provider. They're going to have, if they have more demand than they have resources, they're going to have to juggle stuff around or turn people away, right? So we don't want to turn anyone away. So sometimes people will complain that it's taking too long to get something fixed. And then they will go to the U.S. and pay for it out of their own pocket. And then they will be all upset that it takes too long in Canada and blah, blah, blah. It's just...
Well, if they're able to go to the U.S. and pay for it themselves, it doesn't seem like it's that big of a problem for them.
It's not for them, yeah.
Yeah, it's not going to affect their life and keep kids from going to college and things like that.
Yeah,
Y'all have free university too, don't you?
See, we don't have free university. The only people here who get free university are Aboriginal people. Everybody else has to pay.
Well, that was my mistake. I did not. I've always assumed that y'all had free.
I wish we did. I think that governments should do this as well. China actually used to do that until very recently, and the way you'd get post-secondary education is to make sure you had high enough marks. You could challenge the tests repeatedly if you wanted. And actually, the way their university system works is kind of interesting when it comes to marking papers. They will send all of the papers into a central place, and the students, they're all numbered, so the examiners don't know who the people are who wrote the tests. And so it's kind of like a double-blind scientific research thing when they do that. And so they do that to eliminate cheating on exams, as far as colluding with an instructor who'd be marking them normally. because in their system, it's very important that they have an accurate understanding of people's academic abilities. And because then that way they don't want people who are not competent to go into the higher levels in the universities. So that's actually seems to be a reasonable approach to me.
Yep.
But their university is free, or it was, as far as I've heard that they got rid of that free part recently, but it's normally been free.
And I guess I've been assuming that Great Britain has free post-secondary education. So maybe I'm wrong about that too. I'm wrong about everything.
Well, I don't know, but you were partly right about Canada.
Yeah. But anyway, that's
it's another thing that would benefit us greatly, I think, if cost wasn't a factor for college. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
But so my son took delivery on a Tesla, and I was skeptical, but holy shit, is that a nice car? And not only is it a nice car, but you can turn it on in the garage and you barely hear it and you feel clean, you know? I mean, that's no
aesthetic. Yeah.
It's, I mean, we have got to get this electric car thing going, you know, to the point where they become less expensive than a Tesla. I think what is a minimum 40 to get into a Tesla?
It's the same as a regular car. It doesn't matter. It's a pile of crap, unfortunately, because the people who sell cars say, "Oh, people are used to paying this much for a car. Well, we'll charge this much for the Tesla as well." And then they're making even more profit because it's even less expensive to produce the Tesla than it is to produce the others, because there's less weight, there's less this, less that. The batteries weigh a lot, but I mean there's a lot less moving parts in them. So as I understand it, and so this to me is just, as long as you have the capitalists involved, it ain't going to happen. So I don't think we're going to see cars cheaper. Like I looked at some electric cars in China. And because I saw an ad, so I took a look, and then I converted the renminbi, which is the Chinese currency, to Canadian dollars. The total cost of the car, the same as the cars here that are not electric. It's just all matched up, and it works out to about the same as the Teslas that are in the same class. So I drive a Suburban. I want a truck that's electric. I can't get it yet, but eventually, hopefully, I will. And if I can, I will try to make the move to it. But at this point, I'm stuck on conventional gas.
Yeah, and then
we have been honored. I'm sorry. We have been honored by the presence of Pixie Storms.
I know.
And she agrees with Speed about the Tesla.
She has a Tesla. Yeah.
So welcome, Pixie Storms, and enjoy that Tesla.
I like the car. I do. I think it's a good, powerful machine, and I know friends who've bought them, and they like them a lot too.
Yeah, and I figured out the equivalent based on the dollar, how much gas mileage he's getting right now. The equivalent is about 150 miles to the gallon if you convert that into how far he can go on a charge.
One thing I don't like about the Tesla is they moved the dashboard into the center, the speedometer and stuff.
I thought that would be creepy, but that actually works really well.
Okay. But I know you can get add-ons for it, so you can get that stuff right on your dashboard in front of you. So there are options.
Okay.
So when I take my phone outside with me and it's a sunny day, I can't read it. Is there any problem with, like, if the sun is angled at just the wrong angle and the sunlight is direct, does it interfere with being able to view the stuff on the screen?
We haven't tested that yet, so we haven't had it out that much. He's waiting. He's got to get winter tires for it, because I guess one problem with the Tesla is the tires they ship don't work well in Minnesota. So
all vehicle manufacturers give you crappy tires. You got to get new tires right away.
Yeah.
So the problem with the electric cars is that they're still running off of the electric grid, which is run on coal and oil and stuff.
Yeah, that's got to change. Nuclear power.
Yeah, we need to change
that.
Yeah.
I have to head off, but thank you for the conversation.
We got to head off. We got a shooter in the head, Randall.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
then
I
I'll-
gotta go
I'll
too,
see you to do
yeah.
that.
Oh, I just popped back in. Yeah.
Hey, you made it just in time for the shooting in the head.
Yeah.
I wanted
Is
to
that why
shot
you
in.
came in?
Yep, I wanted to come in and witness it.
Okay.
Man, you haven't lived till you've been to a shooting in the head.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Is anybody here a notary? Because we can put this down. Time of death.
I don't run into too many notaries.
No.
There's
We have a
plenty
lot.
out there.
I'm shooting in the head, guys. Shooting in the head. So
Take care.
Goodbye, cruel
Good night,
world.
everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Stay curious.
Take care.